Let's go.
Let's go. All right. So how have you been?
Great. Just as usual. A lot of work, but yeah.
All right. That's good to know. Well, time flies. Actually, it's been over like 3 months since we last had like a coffee in Paris.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
That
Whoa.
was in February, I think. So it's June now. So that's almost that, but that was towards the end of February. So I think that was like 3.5 months ago. That's quarter of a year.
Whoa. Yeah, it's insane. Feels like it was just yesterday. So
I know, right? It's crazy how time flies, but I certainly look forward to the next time, though.
Oh yeah, me too.
Great. Yeah, because I remember our conversations were a lot about, mutual admiration, and it was such an eye-opening chat for me because I got to hear firsthand how you do what you do in person. So I thought it would be a good idea to, give others the same privilege to learn from you through this interview. Okay, I can see you're a bit embarrassed now,
No.
but I'm sure a lot of your followers will be very thankful.
Oh, I hope so.
I'm sure. Okay, well, let's go then.
Yeah.
Okay, perhaps let's start with you sharing, a bit about your introduction to music and how your journey as a musician started and developed over time.
Oh, so I think everything starts with my parents, because both of them like music and a broad range of genres and everything. So there was always good music playing at home, which is very important when you're a kid, because that's what you take in as the basis of everything that comes afterwards. So yeah, I am very lucky. Especially my father has a very big record collection. There was always good music playing, and everything from Pavarotti, so opera singers, to heavy metal. So there was a bit of everything, which was very good for me. And then I think my first instrument was the piano, if I'm not mistaken, because my mother tried to teach me how to play, but I was already trying to play by ear and not reading the score, because it just felt natural to me, and I couldn't be bothered trying to understand how to read the notes and everything. So already took the easy way out, playing by ear. But then I think I switched very quickly to guitar, just because it's more convenient and it felt cooler as a kid, because you know what we associate with guitar. So I think I started playing guitar at the age of 6, so pretty early on, but just strumming the chords, the cowboy chords on the first three frets also. And yeah, and then started writing songs as a kid.
Wow.
And then I think my first multi-track recording was at home still, at 13. So pretty early on, just trying to stack tracks. And it took me a while because I just didn't understand what a click or tempo was. So I kept trying to record a lead part on top of a rhythm part, and the two wouldn't line up, and it would make me frustrated. But yeah, so 13, and then I think the bulk of my technique, still to this day, I think it comes from practicing almost 8 hours a day during summer break, during high school. So yeah, my teens, the only goal was trying to play fast, trying to play like John Petrucci, Paul Gilbert, and all. So yeah, practice, practice trying to shred. And then I quickly started playing sessions, remote and in the studio, which was a very good practice because that's when I was confronted to real life. So people telling me, you need to do your homework. You're not just playing fast alone isn't enough. So yeah, that really taught me a lot. And then from then on, I just started playing with other people and other genres and in bands. And I don't know if I fast forward to today. I think, yeah, I've always played music. It's been my emotional anchor. So yeah, always playing guitar and trying to diversify to a lot of different instruments. Sorry for
Nice.
the long-winded answer, but I think I've covered it all.
Yeah,
Not sure.
that's what I think is interesting. Actually, I'm glad you shared that much because I think it's really important to also, like, that you remember the timestamps of when those events occurred. Because, like, for example, when you started to record, or at least try to record at the age of 13, I was still probably air guitaring at the time. So that was crazy. I mean, that you would even attempt to do that at that age, and to start playing at 6, where you said you could play the first 3 frets, but that's pretty much the toughest 3 frets to hit as a kid, because obviously your fingers were still not fully developed yet at that age.
Yeah, that's
So
true. Yeah.
yeah, it must have been difficult then. But yeah, I mean, despite, it's not a lengthy answer. I think it's like a very meaningful one, because I think many people would be curious to know how you got from where you were before to where you are today, which is incredible. So thanks
Thank you.
for sharing your journey. So one thing that comes to mind is your versatility as a musician and a content creator. So because you don't just do a lot of different things and genres, you do it like damn well as
Oh,
well.
thank you.
So how do you do it? Because I'm guessing a lot of so-called musicians like myself are lucky to just be decently good enough at one thing, and that's pretty much all most of us have the capacity for. So how do you manage so many different things and do it at the level that you do it?
Have little social life. No, no. So uh, no, but I really think it comes down to, I'm going to go deep right away, but I think it comes down from deep inside feeling like I don't belong, which is a feeling that's really deeply anchored inside me. So I'm always trying to find new things, explore new genres and everything. And I think it's maybe the way I think or the way I'm wired, but it's never enough to just incorporate some elements of the thing. I'm not satisfied just trying to play a 2-5-1 in jazz, and I always want to try to discover a deeper meaning and really explore the genre. And that, I think it comes down to some sort of obsessional behavior. But yeah, I will dive into a genre periodically, and it would mean, let's take an example. I started playing bass about 5 or 6 years ago, and I was learning the instrument to play in a jazz trio. And I also didn't know anything about jazz at the time. So trying to learn the two of them together. And I think that's the only way you can really learn something. It's by going to the deep end and playing with the people who know the music and who know the culture around the music. Because it's cool to incorporate some elements of funk guitar in a metal track, but knowing where it comes from and why you play this way, why there's Nile Rodgers and those guys, and the tradition and the culture, I think it adds a little bit to that. I don't know if I answered your question, but yeah.
Yeah, you did. Like, I think in a way, just to summarize, I think it's like you really dive deep into something when you decide to start something, So I think that's great. But how do you do it in such a way? Obviously, it's always nice to be very obsessed about something and to want to go deep into doing something. So that brings us to the next question, where we've seen, like, time and time again, content creators burn out so quickly after grinding out a certain amount of content for a period of time. But that doesn't seem to be a problem for you. Why do you think that is the case? Because obviously to dive into as deep as you do, it requires effort, it requires time, it requires creativity, which you seem to like have no problem with. So what do you think is the difference between how you do things and, other content creators that, eventually burn out after a certain period of time?
Yeah, I remember we chatted about that during coffee a few months back.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the main thing for me is conditioning yourself to view this content creation thing as a game. Don't know if it makes sense, but it's just like with work in real life. I'm saying real life as a position to playing music, but playing music can be a real job. But yeah, you have to trick your mind in a sense into thinking that everything you do is just a game and it's fun, and that requires discipline. It's really, you have to teach yourself that it's fun to play guitar, to put the camera somewhere, to change lenses and everything, play with the light. And so being a content creator is a really specific thing, I think, because you have to combine video and audio and playing music and being willing to share everything you do with the world. And that takes a specific kind of person and a specific kind of behavior and attitude towards social media. And it's not for everyone. And I remember saying that to you the last time we spoke about that I really think that it's hard nowadays to not be on social media as an artist, but it's not for everyone. And I completely understand and respect if you say that you don't want your music to be tainted in a way, and you don't want to follow a trend of being on social media. And if that's the case, just find someone that can shoot good videos, preferably for cheap, and who can do that work that you don't want to do. But yeah, you have to trick yourself and also create an environment that enables you to be only creative and not think about the technical aspect when you start playing music. And that's also valid as a musician and not a content creator, where you have your amp just within arm's reach, your pedals and everything plugged in. And that can be a really good thing also as a musician, simply.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, especially the last part where you make things convenient for yourself and simple, because I think no one wants to go through the pain of like resetting up everything again the next time they have to do it, and then once that thought comes to mind, they dread doing whatever they intended to do. And then over time, they just start to lose interest because they say, I don't have the time, and etc. So I think it's extremely practical to have everything set up and, staying put. And it's just being there conveniently for you to pick up anytime you want to do any of that, And
yeah, absolutely. And sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was thinking about the thing that there are some of us who have kids, and it's less convenient to have a real big setup, but it can be as simple as just having a Line 6 pod plugged into a Focusrite Scarlett, or just a little interface and a laptop. But just having that setup and that be a happy place, that's really important, I think.
Yeah, it is. And it's such a privilege for you to have like a proper studio now, because I remember at one point you sort of like proudly announced that you finally got out of the bedroom and you finally have like a proper home studio. So how did you find that transition, and how did you feel, and how did you manage that sort of freedom? Because obviously when you're in a bedroom, you have limited space. You kind of have to always shift things around. Things can't be as convenient as like what you said you would prefer. And how did you manage like that transition? Did you like go all crazy, like, oh, I've got all this space right now, what do I do with it? What did I do with it? What was the transition like for you from being like a bedroom sort of guitarist to someone who has like a proper recording or content creation studio at home?
So the transition was fairly easy in a logistical standpoint, because the room I am in now is 12 square meters. So it's the same as my bedroom, my last bedroom, but it's just a separate room from where I sleep in my apartment. And that is a really good cognitive distinction, because when you step out the door from my home studio, you go into your living place, and this is work and creation and happy place. And having those separate rooms is really good for your mind. But yeah, the transition, I think it comes from starting to work with Monte le Son, which is a French collective of creators I'm part of. And we have a YouTube channel that's pretty big, and that's supported by Toman, who's it's like the equivalent in Europe of Sweetwater in the US, so big retailer. And they support our work and sponsor our videos, which means I had a steady income, which is a luxury as an artist. And that enabled me to rent a new place and move. Because I used to be I had roommates before who were members of my band. But I think I needed to find a new place, a new start. So I moved in with my big brother, who's also working remotely. So it's just a big factory at home. We work all day. But yeah, it's good to have just a room, separate room, even if it's not big. It's really good for state of mind and everything.
Yeah. And I absolutely agree. And I think you have to kind of acknowledge the fact that you're in a privileged position where you can actually have like a separate room for that. Not all people can afford that, and it really is a privilege to have like a different room for you to get into work mode. And then as soon as you step out of it, you feel completely different. So therefore, when you step into your bedroom, your mind and your body sort of like tunes itself and tells itself that, okay, it's time to rest. It's not work anymore. So that allows you to be a bit more fresh the next time you step into your workroom, which I think it's great. That's pretty much the ideal situation, and you don't have to worry about commuting to work, peak off-peak hours, which can be terrible sometimes. So it is really a privilege to have like an office next to your bedroom and not inside your bedroom. Yeah,
absolutely. And you don't have to. You have to be kind to yourself and not put too much pressure on yourself, because social media and Instagram especially, or TikTok even more so, you can just use your phone to record a janky video that will go viral. As long as it's your artistic vision, I think there's nothing wrong with that. The sad thing about me was that my references were the Ola Englunds of this world, so I wanted a very polished video. And that's really hard to achieve with just my phone, which I did for a while, but then I upgraded to a budget camera still. But yeah, depending on what your vision is, I think you have to be kind to yourself and know that sharing on social media as an artist can simply be shooting stories with your phone in hand, and that can be just great by itself. So don't put too much pressure on yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And it helps to not compare yourself with other people as well, especially other people who are doing similar things that you are doing. And for some reason, they're doing way better than you are, or they're just technically more gifted, or they may just have more time on their hands to do it. So I think it's essential for us to not compare ourselves with others, actually.
But you can't help but do that, unfortunately. I think in my case, at least. But yeah, I can't help but compare my videos to people in the same state of development as creators, and think their videos are so much better looking than mine. The editing is so much better and everything. But it can be a good thing if you really quickly connect with the people who do that, who do better things than you. And a few people come to mind in my case. Zach Munowitz from Immune, who just put out a new single.
Crazy single, yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. Garrett Sadrowski.
Oh, yep.
Yeah, Sanjay Kumar,
Oh,
who
yep.
plays in the band Foy.
Oh, you met him as well, right? When he was in
Yeah,
Paris or
yeah.
something. Yeah.
So those people were a big inspiration for me when I started taking content creation seriously. And I was constantly comparing my videos to theirs and thinking, oh, it looks crap. It's not good enough. No companies will want to work with me. But when you connect with the people and start sharing and everything, you realize that we're on the same journey. And most often, those people are on the same journey and willing to share because they've been through the struggle and they know what it's like. So they're very open about their process and everything. And that can be really good because you form a community, a very positive group of people who support each other. And I think that's the key to being happy on social media.
Yeah, that's very true. I think the support group is very important, like how you and I are in constant contact and, extremely supportive of each other's work as well, despite, not doing exactly the same thing. But back to what you were saying about, comparing, I think in your case, just to be fair to you, you are using it in a positive way, and you're comparing just so that you can improve rather than to compare and then feel jealous about someone else, which I think is a completely different thing. But if you're comparing, it's because obviously, regardless of whatever industry we're in, we're always looking to improve. And because everything's just so out there right now, it's kind of impossible to be like the pioneer of something. We're always taking references from something else, and we're always learning something from someone else, and then maybe making it our own way, which I think is really important. So in your case, I think when you compare that way, it becomes something positive rather than something that just kills you, because obviously I'm sure there are people who just give up because they feel that they can't ever be good, better than their peers, which is a bit sad. But then so it's important for everyone to always remember that when we compare, it must be with the intention that we want to improve rather than to compare just for the sake of comparing to see who's better at doing something.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
the sad thing in my case is that the two of them go together. So my first impulse was to be jealous and not understand it, and just this soul-crushing feeling of not being good enough, and self-doubt and everything. But yeah, the only trick I've found that really works for me, because I'm hypersensitive, I tend to spiral, is to connect with the people who do that thing well and just chat, even if it's just saying hello. And yeah, I'm a big fan of your work. And just getting a message back, you realize that they're human like you, which is a funny thing to say, but yeah, it really helps put everything in perspective and not go into that spiral of self-doubt, which I tend to do a lot. So we
And
all go through that.
yeah, I'm sure a lot of people go through that, and I think it's so important for you to share that as well, because people are able to finally see the human side of you. Because to like followers like myself, we're constantly thinking like, how on earth does Raoul do what he does, and that constant content creation. And I think content creation is one thing, because content creation can be creating content that has no value, but then the content you create and the way you do it, it's in a way it's exciting to watch. There's a lot to learn as well, and that's what I think contributed to your increase in following. Because the content you put out is not only fun to watch, but people actually learn something from the way you do things. So that's, I think, something you should be proud about. And if you ever feel like spiraling down again, always remember that like there are so many people who look up to what you do, and myself included. You make me
Oh,
feel like
thank you.
giving up the guitar sometimes, you know.
No.
And especially when you post things where you say like, oh, sluggish day, so I'm gonna do this. And then
Yeah.
I'm like thinking, I can't even do that on my best day, you know.
No.
So, but yeah, but like, you know, on the positive note, it's like really, you know, it's really inspiring to see. And I really, really enjoy the content you put out. And I'm kind of glad that I don't have to wait for like 4 weeks or a week before I see what you post next, because you post like almost every other day. So
Yeah.
there's always something to be excited about. So that kind of like takes us to the next question, where we talk about you know, you putting out content at you know, in such short intervals and that sort of consistency. Do you have like a specific workflow when it comes down to composition, content creation, and demos?
Uh, First, thank you very much for the kind words. It really means a lot to me. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, I think I have a basic workflow that's always the same in the way I approach tones mainly, because I actually switched back to using an amp and a cab, which you can see here. It's got
Which we will
cats on
talk
it.
about that
Yeah.
then.
Yeah. But yeah, I've switched back to recording mostly audio. So there's not much MIDI except for the drums, because sadly can't record drums here. So
Yeah.
and it's really expensive even for a small studio. So yeah, I've resulted and accepted that I will be using MIDI drums, which sound great, and we have a great bunch of options nowadays, so it's good. But yeah, my workflow is basically always to have I think a couple of strong ideas, musical ideas, and that can be almost anything. Maybe it's going to be just the way the delay sounds into my first pedal, or it can be a very tricky drum part that I've transcribed. But yeah, always start with a very strong idea and just try to one up yourself every time you add an instrument. And I think Instagram has informed the way I write music, at least for my content, because I know if I put a 1 minute intro, a very ethereal intro that's dreamy and everything and pretty, people are going to skip my video. So I think that's for the album format or for YouTube. But yeah, the things I tend to post on Instagram are a bit punchier and straight to the point. And it's a blessing and a curse, because I've started to write in a very impactful way and fast-paced music that's very dense with a lot of changes and everything. But on the other hand, it's become hard to go past the initial idea, so the first minute of music. And I'm working on my solo album right now, because people keep telling me when's the album coming out.
Oh,
I'm working
nice.
on it, but it's so hard. It's such hard work going from 1 minute to a fleshed out idea and making it work as a song. So yeah, my workflow is, in terms of technique and writing, in terms of logic session, I almost always start with the initial idea and then add drums if it's not drums already, and then write to a beat, a groove, as I'm not a riff type of player on guitar.
Oh, come
So
on.
riffs aren't natural to me. So it's usually a groove or a melody that first draw the skeleton for the track, and then I just add stuff on top. Yeah,
Oh.
I think that's it. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, it's kind of, I think you mentioned this before when we were having coffee, that, you know, like people lose interest in like 2 seconds, and which is kind of crazy, but then that's just the way it is. It's not something that we can change as individuals, but it's good that you sort of found a way to sort of embrace that human nature, you know. Like you said, it could be a blessing, it could also be a curse, but I'm sure with time and patience, you'll be able to sort of like write full piece, like proper pieces with like 1 minute intros eventually, if you really wanted to, you know. I'm pretty sure of that. So, well, That's kind of cool. I need because I was always curious about your workflow. So it's good that you found yours, and I think it's fairly important to have that workflow. So that especially for a guy who has to create content on such a regular basis, it's because if you were to think of an approach from scratch every single time, you probably wouldn't be able to come out with that much content in such short
Absolutely.
period of time. Okay, nice. So you mentioned briefly about going back to recording audio and less plugins and less MIDIs, obviously apart from the drums and stuff like that. I remember you once said like expensive gear make you feel uncomfortable. So so why is that so? Because like for most of us, it's like we always find that excuse of like, oh, my gear's not good enough. I have to get something better than what I already have in order to level up, you know. But in your case, it seems to be the reverse. So why is that so?
I think, yeah, it's strange. I think it comes from growing up fairly poor, which means just the basic starter kit with everything bundled with the little 5-watt transistor amp and the Strat copy, and everything under $100 was already a big investment. So yeah, there's a bit of that. And then also with an expensive guitar, I've owned a few, including what's been my worst experience on electric guitar, which is a Les Paul, which I saved up a lot of months just to buy. And I was so frustrated with the guitar, with the way it sounded, with the way it played, and all the QC issues. And every little ding feels like it's shaking your whole economy. and I couldn't handle that. It's just too much. And yeah, up to this day, I think the upper end of the Indonesian-made guitars and the lower tier of Korean-made guitars are my sweet spot, where it's max 1.5k euros, and even that is pushing it. So yeah, and I really think you don't need a good guitar is going to be consistent and play and sound consistent all the way through climate changes and everything. Less expensive guitar you will have to set up regularly, just take care of a bit more. But I think if you find what makes you happy as a musician, and if you're able to identify what makes you play the way you do, you can set up your instruments, even the very inexpensive ones, to play amazingly well. So yeah.
Nice. Oh, yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. Especially the part where you mentioned about, every single knock or ding makes you feel like, oh, things are different now. You know, I think that's a very, very good point, and I think a lot of us actually have that problem. So now it makes a lot of sense why you said what you said about expensive gear makes you feel uncomfortable. And I always joke about, beginners like myself, we always think that we need to invest in like expensive stuff in order to play better. But then deep down inside, I know like a good musician would make any shitty instrument sound good. Like you said, it just needs a bit of fixing, a bit of setting up, and then it could play the way you want it to. It doesn't have to necessarily be expensive.
Yeah, I see it as a good instrument will have a bit more headroom, meaning it can play all sorts of dynamics and styles and be consistent across this scale of things it can do. A less expensive instrument and a budget instrument like some of which I have will have a reduced headroom, and it can do less things, and you have to work a lot to get it to sound good across this spectrum. But yeah, it's just so painful every time you add a scratch or ding to guitar that's 1,000 euros. So yeah, the comfort and the headroom is a balance you have to find for yourself. But as for beginners, I think the one thing you have to be careful about is setup, because it can discourage you and be crushing if you have a guitar that's really hard to play, and you're just starting to learn how to play chords, and barred chords are impossible because the action is way too high. So get your guitar set up if you're a beginner, just so you know what a good setup means in terms of playability and everything, before you start wondering about the guitar itself.
Yeah. That's pretty true, because I've played like really expensive guitars that had really bad setups, and it just, even like a cheap like $300 guitar feels better than that. I've had those experiences before. So I think you make a lot of sense when you say a good setup is, it could literally make or break a guitar, a good setup,
Yeah, and in your development as a musician and when learning an instrument, I think it's crucial to have that comfort. Because if you're just starting out on guitar and you're fighting the instrument, being an expensive or a budget guitar, I think you'll just get fed up and
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Well, speaking of gear, I can't not talk about that cabinet you have behind you with that cute graphic, that Jesus amp there. Like, I was always curious, like you seem to be like a fan of like sort of like cartoon-like graphics like that. How did you decide on that? I mean, just like, we're probably straying from the main topic here, because I can't not ask about how you came up, or what made you want to have that graphic there when you could have like something that's more, say, versatile, or something that's more brutal looking, but you opted for something that looks so cute. What was your thought process in that?
I think there's a bit of contradiction spirit, because Jesus is traditionally a brand that specializes in extreme music. So you have a lot of hardcore graphics with a lot of blood, skulls, and everything.
And their speakers are called demons,
Yeah, that as well. But yeah, so I thought there's a part of me that thought, yeah, I should put cats on it, because I love cats. But yeah, also because the thing I do most on Instagram is doom scroll cats reels, because I love cats. And so yeah, I thought, I just do that. And yeah,
nice.
thankfully the guys over at Jesus were really supportive and liked the idea. And so I tried to go for a classic look with the, don't know how to say, the beige scheme,
the and background sort of canvas.
Yeah, and black Tolex, which is fairly classic. So yeah, there's this. Yeah, I think my first design was with a green Tolex, but then I calmed down. And I thought, try to go for a minimum of versatility, and I went for black.
Yeah, so I think it looks great though. It looks really great. I was trying to mess around with the Tolex colors and stuff like that, and there's just so much you can do, and especially given the freedom to design whatever, like put whatever graphic in the front, could be so confusing. It's like you could literally do whatever you want, and they would say, yeah, fine, if it's your print, we're happy to print it. It's just so difficult. So I'm kind of happy you managed to settle on one design. It's really nice. It's really cute.
Thank you. I think that this design is my fourth iteration, because I drew it in Illustrator.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow.
Send them the file. Yeah, just to get the exact ratios of the black cats against the But yeah, and it turned out it's really handy when it comes to miking the cat, because I know that where the SM57 is right now is the nose of the white cat on the top speaker, and that seems to be a sweet spot for me in terms of sound. So it's really handy. It's cute and handy. So.
Amazing. Like, people would struggle and say like, like just 5 inches to the left and 4 inches higher. Yours are like, no, the eyes, the nose, the paw.
That's it. Yeah, exactly.
The right paw, the left paw. So it's actually very practical as well.
Yeah.
Oh well, thanks for sharing that. It's hilarious. I always wondered like what inspired that funny graphic there. And I think to a certain extent it's kind of like a reflection of your personality as a content creator as well. So it's not like there's a mismatch. I mean, I think if you were to have like a bloody black metal sort of amp, it wouldn't have suited your the sort of things you do anyway. It'd be like, is that like a different side of Raoul? Yeah. So this one suits you really well.
Thank you.
Good. Well, thanks so much for spending time here, with us. So before we go, is there any final advice, for those who are looking to follow your footsteps as a musician or a content creator? If you had like, just one last thing to say to them, what would it be?
I think it would be the same thing I said earlier, which is to be kind to yourself and try to make everything a game. It's just like with traditional work and job. You have to find joy in it, and if your job is a game, then your life is always a happy place. And to me, that's the secret to life in general. So I think that's a bit broad, but yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it makes absolute sense. I think as there's always this saying, when you enjoy what you're doing, it doesn't feel like work. Okay, obviously there will be frustrating moments and stressful moments, but obviously that's life. But
Yeah.
I think we should still try to have as much fun as possible.
Yeah. One last thing is, if you have any questions or anything that you want to ask me, feel free to send me a message. I think I miss a few because I get a lot of spams in my folder, but I try to answer everyone. So yeah, just feel free to message me and I'll do my best to help or just share. Yeah.
Oh, nice. That's very kind of you. Yeah, so I'm sure like a lot of your following would be very happy to hear that as well, to be like, be in direct contact with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not anyone special, so just send me a
Well,
message.
you are to a lot of people. You're someone very inspiring, and hence, I thought it would be such a great idea to have this chat with you, which I think a lot of people would appreciate.
Thank you. It really means a lot.
Okay. Well, thanks so much for your time. But one last thing before we go. So obviously, by the time this interview is out, people would already know that we collaborated on the song called Dauntless. And I just wanted to thank you because it was such an amazing experience to have you working on it. And thank you so much, man, because I told you many times before that, but what you did to the song really brought it to the next level. And I really can't thank you enough for spending time on it. It means a lot.
My pleasure. I feel like I've just played the part that you wrote, but
no.
Yeah.
You wrote, I mean, I kind of wrote the part in like a very boring way. Somehow when you sent it back to me, I'm like, oh shit, you can actually make something. It's almost as if you made like a very bad instrument sound very good. So I'm so thankful.
You did all the work and I just played it. So,
No,
my pleasure.
don't say that. I mean, like, I think your contribution is way more than you think it is, and I really have to thank you for that. And I'm really appreciative of the fact that you took the time out despite your busy schedule, because obviously you had to record it, you had to film like a playthrough, and it was a lot of work. So I'd like to just say thank you once again.
Yeah, you're welcome. My pleasure, really. And always down to do this kind of thing with friends. So my pleasure.
Well, appreciate it. So for those who probably by the time this video is out, I would probably include like the links to the song, like whether it's on Spotify or on YouTube in the description. So do check that out. So thank you so much, Raoul, for your time today. And I definitely look forward to meeting you again. And next time, coffee is definitely on me.
Okay. Yeah, works for me. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Take care, bro.
You too. Bye.